Okay people, welcome back to another Fwoosh review. Tonight I'm taking a look at Diamond Select's Marvel Select Destroyer action figure. Now I didn't actually plan on buying this. My Marvel display is getting smaller and smaller as time passes. Star Wars is just taking over. But I was out of town. I was in a bigger city that actually had comic shops. I ran across this in a vintage stock in Oklahoma City, and I thought, this looks cool. I want this. The last Marvel Select Thor was an excellent action figure, so yeah, I couldn't pass on it. But as you can see, this is a huge figure. It barely fits into my review space. In the package, you could see everything nicely through the window. Now, another one in the package had a gap in the hip articulation here, but it had an Odin face that the eye was actually straight forward. I opted to go with the Destroyer that didn't have the gap in the hip because I'm after the figure. I don't really care for the huge-ass Odin head. And really, if it comes down to it, he's looking a little to the left. It makes him a little bit more dynamic. Window on the side. On the back, we get some pretty pictures. Actually, I didn't even notice that was torn. Who cares? It's the package. We get a backstory of the Destroyer, the Odin sword, the Odin head. And then on the other side, like I said, is the bookend picture of Destroyer if you put the packages up on a shelf or something like that. But yeah, I'm going to get this out of the package. Hopefully it's a little bit more manageable, and I'm going to see what's going on here. And there we go, all out of the package. And the first thing I have to say, I'm glad I bought this. I wasn't expecting as much as I got. I guess it was the design that kind of hid some of the articulation. I wasn't prepared for the amount of swivels that there actually are, because it's hidden in the sculpt. But just looking at the figure, the sculpt is awesome. And this being a specialty line, it doesn't have to go with the soft plastics that it would have gone through if it was at retail. So the spikes all over the body, while not super sharp, they can get a little bit painful when you start cranking on certain parts of the body. But all the spikes, all the ridges, all the musculature, everything here is nicely sculpted. And then getting to the paint. For a character that's pretty much just silver, Diamond went out of their way to add some shading, some blackwash, some overspray, and the clear gloss is just so satisfying. You look at it in certain spots, it's just so shiny and smooth. That glossiness just adds something on top of all that. And as you can see, the black overspray follows the spikes down the sides, down through here, and then inside the musculature, down the back in the little grooves. Yeah, for such a simple thing, it comes out really great. Now you can see the blackwash on the face. It got kind of heavy. It comes out of the groove a little bit here and there. And then you get up to the shape on his forehead, and even there's kind of an overspray coming up on that. Now the spray does get a little heavy right here and right here, where it looks like it pulled up, it kind of bubbled up. But I just look at it as an old armor. That's some buildup of some oil or some grease or something. So even the bad spots in the black overspray, I can live with that completely. Now if this has any downfalls at all, it's in the articulation in a couple of spots, but we'll get to that. And if it bugs me enough, at the end of this, we may try to work on that and see if we can open up a little bit of range of articulation there. But going over the articulation, there's a dumbbell at the neck. It's a ball going down into it and then a ball going up into the head. You get some side to side, you get some up. You don't get much forward though, and I think that's because the back of the head isn't hollowed out right here. Behind the face, there's just a lot of plastic right there. The shoulder pads are also on dumbbell joints, a ball down into the chest and then a ball up into the shoulder pad. So it gets up and out of the way, and there's quite a bit of movement there. It goes wherever you want it to go. I like that. That's a neat little thing to add to it. The shoulders are hinge and swivel. They hinge up to about right there, and then they swivel around. Oops. And I figured the shoulder pads did come off, but I hadn't actually popped it off until just now. But that should be easy enough to just pop back on there. There you go. You have a bicep swivel. Have a single elbow, gets up to about right there. Not quite 90, but for the bulk of this figure, I'm okay with that. We usually see that with the bulkier figures. Also, another thing about this elbow, they continued the design down into the inner workings of the articulation. It's not exact sculpt, but it's kind of simulated in there. So, neat little thing. It kind of hides the articulation a little bit more. The wrist is a hinge and swivel. You get swivel. Then you get hinge side to side. There's a dumbbell joint in the mid-torso. It gets you some forward, gets you some back a little bit, gets you some side to side. Not a great amount of movement. There's spikes and ridges and grooves and everything else right here getting in the way. You do get a little twist there, but you also have a waist twist that goes all the way around. So yeah, another hidden point right there that I almost missed until I went cranking on the upper torso there. The hips are hinge and swivel. They hinge out to about right there. Not a great amount of movement, but like I said, again, bulky figure. And then comes forward up to there. Hidden, again, is a thigh swivel. Right in the groove. I mean, this figure was made for hidden articulation. Single knee gets up to about right there. Hinge at the ankle, goes back, comes forward. Even though it was kind of hard to move at first, there is a forward-facing pin for rocker. It catches on the lower leg a lot, but it is there. Going back to paint for a second, for as much black wash and as much gloss is on here, I didn't have a problem with any of the articulation. None of it was stuck. It was all free moving as soon as I tried to use it. Usually with this much overspray, we see a lot of stuck joints, but not here. I'm super impressed. Now for accessories, Destroyer does come with the Odin sword. This is very, very detailed. The blade is kind of plain, but once you get down to the decorative parts in the gold, a lot of little groovies and little swirlies and little pointies and things like that. Now the sword is kind of soft. Not super soft. It doesn't have a lot of flex to it, but it is a little bit warped from being in the package. My other big thing here is the hands aren't really a flexible material, so you gotta kind of fight it to get it in there. I found the best way is just to push down into the hand and then just let it slide in there. And watch out for the spikes, because you don't want to grip those too hard. The other accessory is Odin's head. I guess he wore the armor at some point. I missed that story. I don't really remember it. My memories of the Destroyer was always somebody taking control of it, kind of controlling it from afar and then attacking enemies. But I guess Asgardians can actually wear the armor. And this is a good sculpt. I like the hair coming down, the beard, the patch over the eye. Like I said in the intro, the eye on mine is kind of looking to the left. But the other one I did see at the store was facing forward. So if you're worried about the Odin head, just make sure to look at that before you buy, if there's more choices on the shelf. And again, even with the gloss coat, the head is very easy to pop off. Then you take the Odin head, line it up. It is a little bit tight, but once you get it on there, it's on there. And again, same as the Destroyer head, not a lot of movement forward, but with the Odin head here, you have the hair hanging on the back. You have the hair hanging in the front. Even with some cleared out range of movement, you're not going to get a lot of range of movement because of the head itself. For comparison, here he is with the Marvel Select Thor, the last one I got, the one with the cool ass hammer accessory. And I feel like this scales really well. Yeah, it's huge, but I like the Destroyer huge. But here he is with the old Marvel Legends Loki. I can't remember which series this Loki actually came in. It's been a while. But again, this works well. I like my Loki a little bit smaller, a little bit more conniving, a little bit more evil looking. So I really love this figure. The articulation kind of sucks in places, but I like the look of it. And then for a Legends display, here he is with the Marvel Legends Black Panther. It uses the standard Bucky Cap body and gives you an idea of what he would look like in a Legends display. Huge, but again, it's Destroyer, so huge is good. Okay, like I said, there's 2 points of articulation I'd like more range of movement in, and that would be the neck, and that would be the upper torso. I want him to crunch down more, and I want him to be able to look down more. Now, I actually got this idea from Dallas James, aka Incurable Collector. He showed it on his Facebook page and he showed it on his Instagram. There's links to both of those in the description if you want to check him out. All credit goes to him. I'm just following in footsteps and see if I can do the same thing. Now, it's simple enough to pop off the head. It's interchangeable. It's easy to pull off. But to get this apart, I actually had to turn it, get it open a little bit, and run a heat gun up in there. Now you could use boiling water, you could use any method you want to heat this up, but it does need heated up to come apart. This socket is a very tight fit on this ball, plus you can see there's little bitty nubs on it to keep it from coming apart. Now for the torso piece, you can see that the bottom ball has some movement, but we're going to open that up and try to get more forward and back out of it. And that would mean taking out some plastic here and maybe in the back. Probably just here because I want him to crunch forward really good. Because how big this figure is, it needs to be able to look down on enemies in the display, whatever. And then when it comes to the neck, same thing here. It does have movement at the bottom, but if we take out some plastic right here, hopefully it'll look down more. But like I pointed out, there's also a lot of plastic right here, so I may come in and shave this in a little bit. It's not going to really affect the look if I can keep the cut very, very clean, I guess you could say. As long as it's gone, nobody's going to see it when he's looking down or forward. And in cases like this, I'm going to use my handy dandy Dremel. Now I've had this thing for 10 years at least. I don't know what newer models look like. I've always just used this one. It's dirty, it's dusty, it's well used. Not lately, but in years past it's been well used. And then I've got kind of a tapered stone bit that I use for 99% of my cutting on plastic. This is not a cordless one, so I have this cord all wrapped around my camera tripod, coming around the table, going over to the other side. I'm going to attempt to do this on camera, but if not, you'll see the end result here in a minute. But before I do get started, I wanted to mention too, because of the ball going down in there, you don't want to make this hole or this groove bigger than the ball itself. Obviously, if you make it bigger, the ball's going to fall out when you try to use the articulation. So what it comes down to is us opening up the plastic at least the width of the centerpiece of the dumbbell, not the ball itself. I've taken a little bit out of the front. I got down to the ball because you have to get at least close to the ball so it'll come all the way forward. This is how far back the factory is, and then pulling forward, it goes a little bit further, but I'm going to try to open it up just a little bit more. You also don't want to take this groove too far forward because when you crank back, you'll be able to see it. So trying to stay in between somewhere right here and not making it big enough for the ball to fall out. I think that's as far as I want to take it without actually testing it. I haven't put the top back on, but as you can see, it gets quite a bit more range of movement forward than it did. And the good thing about this, you don't have to be pretty about it. Leave it ugly, whatever. You're just going to cover it up with the top of the body. It doesn't really matter. Now, before I pop everything back together, I'm going to go ahead and do the neck too. That way I'm not fighting the body hanging down off this, adding some more weight to what I'm holding in the other hand. I'm also not going to get too crazy here because I want to try getting the head hollowed out a little bit more. Okay, I didn't take a lot out. You can barely see that I dipped down right there, but it did bring the head movement quite a bit more forward. Now I'm going to take the head and come around inside of it. Just knock out this big hunk of plastic right here while trying to leave the face and the bottom lip in there. Okay, you can see up in there, it's not pretty, but I did leave an edge, and from the front, you get it angled about to there, or even looking here, you'll never see it. So putting it back on there, a combination of both of those, now the head will go down around the neck, and he can look down. That actually worked out better than I thought it would. Before, it was about right there. Now I can come down to here. In fact, it opened up a whole range of movement all the way around. And then what I'm going to do here is heat this up and then pop it back together and see how much motion I got out of this. Okay, heat it up, pop back on. I get that much crunch now. It's not greatly improved, but it is improved. And then along with the head, you can pretty much look down like so. But on top of all that, it was only about 10 minutes work. Not bad at all. But I really like how much more head movement I have now up here. So yeah, that's a big improvement. This little improvement. So at the end of the day, very, very impressive figure. Like I said before, I don't buy a lot of Marvel Select, kind of bigger for my preferred scale. And sometimes the articulation isn't really up to what I want in an action figure. But here, holy shit, this is a nice figure. That breaks it down right there. Holy shit. A lot more movement for a big guy. Yes, I had to do a little bit of work, 10 minutes of dremeling, but it opened it all up enough to make me very, very happy with it. But even before that, the range of movement on a lot of the joints, the hidden swivels, stuff I didn't even know was there. Put that on top of the glossy paint job, the smoky overspray to some of the details, and yeah, this is one hell of a figure right here. For 25 bucks. For Star Wars Black Series, I'm paying 20 to 22. For Marvel Legends, I'm paying 18 to 21, somewhere in there. For a couple dollars more, I just bought a big old hunk of plastic plastic that moves just as great as some of those figures. This figure is great. I don't think I could recommend this more if I tried. And then on top of that, I highly recommend doing the fixes to the articulation too, because it really opened up the head a lot. Just a great, great figure. I'm sitting here stupefied going, wow, completely happy with this. Go out and grab this guy. It's a good addition to either your Legends or your Select shelf. It'll work either way, if you're good with big guys being big on your Legends shelf. So if you like the review, comment, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the Fwoosh.